How you doing, guys? Gordon TC here, and I haven't uploaded a Shadowverse deck profile because like the scene here at my local place, it's kind of dead. So yeah, the last couple times that I have went there to play, I just end up playing Vanguard, so that's the reason I haven't uploaded anything. But yesterday, even though the tournament wasn't that big or anything, we just decided to just play test plenty of decks and all this stuff. Especially since one of the players that is going to, uh, uh, that goes at my locals, it's going to play in the upcoming regional. So I just kind of like decided to play test against him, so he could just kind of like get familiarized with just random matchups and all this stuff. So yeah, he was playing cool the majority of the times. I played against two cools yesterday in the tournament. I did not went well. I brick with another deck, but when we start play testing, everything just kind of changed a little bit. So yeah, I at least in this current format with the Cinderella Girls is the meta. I feel like you have to play something that is as aggressive as the deck they're playing, but also keeping track of their opponent's field, of your opponent's field. Kind of feels like Uma, where everything is like a little bit more sacky. So yeah. So anyways, let me move the evolved deck here to the side. So this is going to be my swordcraft deck. It's very straightforward. You really don't have to think too much. But yeah, probably explain a couple of things here and there. But yeah. Anyways, starting up with the cost ones, we're playing 2 copies of Quick Blader and 3 copies of Iron Rock Defender. This is just for a hero, and it's a pretty good early card. It's a hero, so you can call it with the heroic entry, and it will get +1/+1. And if you have 2 other heroic cards in the graveyard, it gets ward. So it's a pretty good way to defend yourself late game in case things get a little bit hard, and a little bit annoying. And this is the card that gave problems to the Cinderella Girl deck. Once you get it set up, you kind of really want to see, if you go first, you really want to see this card in your opening hand with the other card that gets paired pretty well with it is going to be Armor of the Stars. These 2 cards go pretty well. You could search for the Armor of the Stars. Sorry, but you cannot search. You cannot search for Armor of the Stars, but you can indeed search for the Samurai. So for those who don't know what the heck the Samurai does, he has the effect that he doesn't take combat damage. And the other effect is that you can pay 2 and get +1/+1 in Rush. It gives, it's permanent, so you can keep doing it every time. So for example, if you go first, you can play this. If you don't see this next turn, if you don't want to play something else, you can just go ahead and pay 2. He turns into a 2/2. So he starts bumping itself. It's kind of like Evolved Sleeper from Magic the Gathering. So it kind of feels like that. Every turn he will get big, 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 big. So your opponent can only deal with it with spells. Now depends on what Cinderella deck you're playing against, but at least School doesn't have any like removal. And if they do, I think it's like cost 2 that just deals 2 if they have another cool card or something. I know Passion has plenty of spot removals, but that's where Armor of the Stars come into play. It just gives it +1 or 2 and Aura, so it just makes this basically unkillable for plenty of decks, unless they have like a board wipe that deals like 5 damage to the field or something. But it really depends, because you could keep bumping this guy. He turns very, very big. But yeah. Armor of the Stars is pretty cool. So one of the things that I usually do is just like, if I go first, I try to mulligan for the Armor of the Stars, and I'll figure out how to get to this, because that's the other thing. You could just equip this to something else, and it's just pretty freaking good. So yeah, especially the stats bonus that is a +1/+2 is pretty good. But yeah, next for cost 2, playing 3 copies of Ralmia and 3 copies of Fina. Fina is just to get you to this. Like I said, you can get access to this by plenty of cards. You can play Fina and kind of like fetch to see if you can get this. Heroic Entry can also get this. Mars gets you this because he's an officer, and Mars bumps him a little bit. So basically he's just, Steed Samurai goes crazy for sure. But like I said, especially with Armor of the Start, yeah, basically that goes from there. Ralmia is just there, it gets Rush, 3/2, on Evolve, you could pay 3 if I'm not mistaken. It gets everything +1 +1 +1. And I think it keeps the rush, right? No, it has storm. So yeah, pretty cool card because can steal plenty of games from time to time, especially in late game. So yeah, that's it for the low cost cards. You'll probably see them a lot and you'll play with them a lot. But yeah, next for the cost 3, these are kind of like the other cards that make the entire deck pretty good. We're playing 2 copies of Disciple of Usurpation, just sending 2 from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, and in the late game, he turns into a 5/2, so, you know, if he attacks, so it's pretty good. Steals games and all this stuff. Next we got 3 copies of Floor Fencer. This card is still busted. Just the fact that it just overwhelms too much your opponent. She turns into a 4/4, at, you know, rush something. If you go usually all the times that I play tested, if I wanted to go second, I really wanted to see this card going second. It don't matter. Turn 3, this card is insane. Your opponent really can't deal with a 4/4 and a knight and a steel clad and whatever you have on the field. So yeah, your opponent will have bad time dealing with the Floral Fencer, so still playing it. Gem Staff Commander, the only 2 targets that I will usually search is going to be Albert and Leonidas. You know, so basically just to kind of like round up the games. So yeah, once your opponent knows that's it, so you know, they're pretty broken. I really can't say much. Mars, since you play a lot of officers, same thing. Mars on turn 3, and then on turn 4 you go Flora Fencer. Just makes everything extremely big. It will hit hard. It don't matter how you're gonna do it. So it puts your opponent in a very tough spot. So yeah, especially like I said, the other effect that you can just pay 1, just call one officer from the deck. It's actually pretty freaking good and pretty hilarious. It can just steal a lot of stuff, a lot of games. Like I said, this deck just steals games. Not much I can say. The other cool thing is that, you know, you can call Quick Blader. Quick Blader turns into a 2/1. So on and so forth. Obviously, if you have the mana late game, that's pretty much game over. You can just call the Mock Knight and go from there. So yeah. Anyways, Heroic Entry. It's self-explanatory. Gets you calls something that costs 3 or less. And if it's a hero, it gets +1/+1. So obviously, probably your best target is going to be Mock Knight, and Mock Knight is also there for that extra spot removal on Evolve. Sometimes dealing that 2 damage or 4 damage if you have all the, you know, all the heroes in your graveyard. It's pretty freaking good. So you only play 9 copies of hero cards, so you know you're bound to see 2 copies at least early game. If not, you can just get them out as soon as you can. Alright, let's round out the deck with the high cost cards. So we're playing 2 copies of Albert. I don't know what to say. Albert is just still pretty good for me. I really like him. I wish I had the leader, but same thing. He just basically attacks. He doesn't take damage. Sometimes you could just go ahead and play him, attack into 2 things just to get rid of it. And stuff, but him and Leonidas is just basically game if your opponent doesn't have an answer to it, especially if your opponent is trying to get rid of your cards as fast as possible, because you will overwhelm them. Even if your opponent doesn't get rid of your field, the fact that you will make your units pretty big is going to be very annoying for them. So yeah, Chords, Courtly Dance. This card is busted as heck. This is another card that I really want to see in your opening hand. If you see this card in your hand and you feel like you can survive with all the other cards you have in hand, just don't mulligan, to be honest. Just keep it. Effect is pretty straightforward. Look at the top 5 and call up to 3 cards, if I'm not mistaken. No, you can summon any number of Swordcraft colors that cost 3 or less. That the total is 7. So you can just basically call like all 5 or 2-1. 2-1-3, 3-3-1. You know, you just have to make sure that the sum of all the cards cost is just 7. So it's actually pretty good and pretty busted. You could just call Ralmia. You could call Ralmia, Mock Knight, basically any other, like this entire pile. except on neutral, that's it. But basically this entire pile. And it could set you up also. It happened a lot to me a couple times where I just like hit a gem staff, so I played the gem staff, and it just searches for the Leonidas for next turn. So basically I have gas just to get rid of 2 cards in the field and make the banner. So yeah, finally, not least, the 1 Leonidas. You like, I feel like you don't need 2 copies, but yeah. Now moving into the evolved decks to round out the deck. Mars playing 2 copies if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 2 copies. I'm playing just a bunch of 2-ofs if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they organized this. So the 2 Mars, self-explanatory, unevolved, you can pay it, blah blah blah. She evolves for free, so the other thing that you can do is just evolve her so she's a little bit bigger than usual. So you know your opponent will probably have a little bit of trouble getting rid of it. If you're playing against Kuon, evolving this on turn 3 so it doesn't get a yard snipe is actually pretty good. If not, I would prefer my opponent just spending as many resources as they can just to get rid of the Mars. So yeah. Obviously, 1 extra spell in their graveyard is a little bit more annoying, but you could keep track of that with no problem, to be honest. So, yeah. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Ralmia. The Supersonic, same thing, like I said, this card could steal games. Give Storm, pay extra 3 and evolve. Everything on any other follower on the field gets +1/+1. 2 copies of Mach Knight. It deals 2 damage, or 4 if you have 2 heroic followers, and to round up, 1 copy of Oliver and 1 copy of Leonidas. This, I really will not change anything. This deck, at least, either I got super lucky or anything, but everything kind of like just fit in place. There weren't that many times where I had, where I was just top decking. That never happened with me, to be honest. And it's just very straightforward, to be honest. I really enjoyed this deck, to be honest, and I'm sure with this current meta, if you don't really want to play Cinderella Girls, this is a pretty good option, at least from my perspective, that you could give it a try and go from there. At least cool. Obviously, Passion, like I said, you have to kind of like maneuver around a couple of things here and there, since Passion, I think, has, like I said, more spot removals and they play other cards. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, tokens. So yeah, but yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and peace.